There is a ton of competition out there. But on the flip side, there's also more opportunity than there's ever been in the history of the world. There's brands popping up every single day that are doing all kinds of different things. From e-commerce, there's new boutique hotels popping up. There's all kinds of different brands that need content in order to run their business, because now that more than ever, content is king and then content is required to be relevant. Everybody has a TikTok, everyone has an Instagram, everyone has a website. Everybody has to run advertising of some sort, meaning they need content to be able to shoot that. Your job is more relevant than it ever has been before, and even though there's a lot of competition, there is tons of opportunity as well, and you just have to be able to position yourself to be able to get those jobs. 5 years ago, I was a broke 22-year-old with a camera and a dream of making full-time content creation my career. Now, if we fast forward to today, I've worked with some of the top brands in the travel industry, including Four Seasons, Westin, Marriott, and plenty other ones, but it wasn't until I busted the 7 myths that are keeping content creators under that $100,000 a year goal. And to be honest, these 7 myths were keeping me under that goal as well, and they probably are doing the same for you, so that's why I'm exposing them so you can bust them for yourself. So these myths I'm gonna organize like levels in a video game, where you go to level 1, and then once you beat level 1, you move on to level 2, level 3, so they're organized from the most generic of fears to the most specific of fears, and once you unlock each one of these levels, you'll be able to win the game. So each one of these myths is fundamentally formed by fear. Now, the fear may look different depending on which one of these myths we're talking about, and I'm gonna dive deep into that, but it is very rarely a result of a lack of talent or that you aren't good enough. Those are actually lies that I'm gonna be talking about very soon. So in order to pass each level, it's not actually about upping your talent level, but it's more so about, number 1, changing your beliefs and exposing the lie, and number 2, changing your actions based on that newfound belief system. Now, only after you do that with each and every single level can you beat all the levels, eventually move on and win the game. So you ready to play? Let's go. Level 1 is the most basic of all the levels, and it is the thought process that content creation, photography, videography is not a real career path, and it's just like a hobby, and I can't actually make money doing this. Now, this is fundamentally formed by fear, but specifically the fear of disappointment, because growing up, our parents maybe told us that they want us to be a doctor or a lawyer, they want us to work some corporate job or do marketing for this company, and when we don't do it and we say, hey, we want to create content for a living, all of a sudden there's this little bit of disappointment that, you know, your parents might have. Or maybe even work past that and you post your content on the internet and some random stranger says, oh, don't go quit your day job, and now you're discouraged by that. So all these things kind of combined together give you the belief system that it is not a real job, because that's what everyone is telling you. Now, this could not be further from the truth. I am like a perfect example of that, and there's countless of other people that are doing content creation as a career, whether it's photo or video or a combination of both. So just a brief explanation of my story. I moved to Hawaii basically right after college. I didn't have any connections, and I didn't even know what I was doing really, but I knew that it was possible because I saw others before me being able to do it. So although I didn't know how to do it personally myself, I knew that it was possible, and I knew that it was a job career that people actually followed. So I decided to pursue it myself, and here we are. Now, I won't say that it was easy, because actually it wasn't, and to be honest, it's probably easier now than ever because there's so much information out there about how to create content. This was back in 2016, 2017, where I was basically figuring all this stuff out, bouncing ideas off of friends, and I didn't really know anyone in the industry, so everyone I was asking didn't really know themselves either. So it was just kind of like a lot of learning and learning by failing. But now you have channels like mine where I'm teaching you how to actually create a business with this, so it's actually much easier and much more attainable than it was even like 5-6 years ago. So all that to say, if I can do it, you can definitely do it. So now that we've busted the first level, which is just that it's not even possible at all, clearly it's possible because there's people doing it, we move on to level 2, which is I have to live in a big city, or at least have to live somewhere cool, or at least be able to travel somewhere cool in order to make this like a full-time living. So this thought process is primarily formulated by the fear of not being seen. We think if we're not in an area where there's a bunch of people, or we are not exposed to a lot of people, then we won't have the ability to be seen, and our work won't be seen, meaning we will not get jobs. But the cool thing about the day and age in which we live is we live in the internet age, where you can literally live anywhere and you can work remote, or you can contact anybody in the world just by sending an email. So you can send emails and make connections with marketing managers at hotels, with brands, whatever, and you could live, say, somewhere in the middle of the country where there's not any big cities, and you can actually shoot for these brands. Either number 1, you could make it look like, you know, wherever you live is somewhere different, or somewhere that the brand actually wants to shoot at. So you can do this in a few different ways. Either you can set up a set, which is what movies do, right? Where you kind of fake a location, or 2, if the brand has the budget, you can actually fly out to a location in order to be able to shoot for them so that you can get the look that they want. So I've actually done both of them. I'm blessed that I live in Hawaii, so I get to use Hawaii to my advantage in terms of being able to shoot epic locations, things that look tropical, exotic, all that kind of stuff. But there's been plenty plenty of times where a brand has flown me out and paid for my ticket and also paid for my rate that I charge to shoot content in order to shoot it in a certain location. Just as an example, I flew out to Utah because a brand wanted me to shoot their content for their company in the salt flats. They specifically wanted the look of the salt flats, and they were willing to pay for me to fly out there and also to pay my rate to do that. So now that we know that it's entirely possible and we can do it from anywhere, the next thought process that comes up, level 3, is the industry is way too saturated. So this level is primarily formed by the fear of embarrassment and the fear of losing. You are scared of competing with other people who've maybe been doing it longer, maybe you even think they're better than you, and as a result, instead of going after that competition, you start to shrink down. So to be completely honest, there is a ton of competition out there, and there's probably more competition than there's ever been in the history of the world. But on the flip side, there's also more opportunity than there's ever been in the history of the world. There's brands popping up every single day that are doing all kinds of different things. From e-commerce, there's new boutique hotels popping up, there's all kinds of different brands that need content in order to run their business, because now that more than ever, content is king and then content is required to be relevant. Everybody has a TikTok, everyone has an Instagram, everyone has a website, everybody has to run advertising of some sort, meaning they need content to be able to shoot that. So now that we understand that there's a lot of opportunity out there, the next level, level 4, is that yes, there's a lot of opportunity, but why would anyone hire me when there's tons of people that are quote unquote better than me, more talented than me, have better gear than me, whatever it might be? Why would I get hired above them? So this level is fundamentally formed by the fear of not being good enough. And to be honest, a lot of people, including myself, thought we would never be good enough. To be honest, there's tons of photographers out there that are better than me. There's also some that are not as good as me that are getting jobs currently. So clearly it's not a level of talent or a level of gear or expertise or anything like that. It's something else. So although there's all kinds of people out there that companies could hire, there are actually a few reasons why they wouldn't hire them, even those that you think that are better. The first one is maybe they don't even know they exist to begin with, which is entirely possible. Number 2, they think they're unapproachable because maybe if they're super famous, then they can't approach them. And number 3, they probably can't afford them, or think they can't afford them if they're unapproachable, which means that if you put yourself in position for this company and say, hey, you have this problem, I can solve this problem in this specific way, and you will get the result that you're desiring, all of a sudden you position yourself as the expert, and it doesn't matter if you have 20 years of experience or 1 year of experience or 6 months of experience. If you can show how you can get the result that they want, you all of a sudden are the expert, and they will trust you to get the job done for them. This is what it boils down to. If you can position yourself as the best person to get their specific problem solved, then all of a sudden you are the best person for the job, no matter experience, no matter accolades, nothing. You are the best person for the job. So ultimately, it's not about your aesthetic, it's not about your style, it's not about your gear, it's not about your experience level. It's about, can you get the client the result they want in the timeline that they want to be able to get it done? And if you can, you got the job. So now that we have overcome and we know that we can compete with some of these other big names, the next question comes up, which is level 5. Well, I don't have a social media account and I need that in order to quote unquote make it. So this level is fundamentally formed by the fear of not being good enough, just like the last one, but specifically not being good enough because you don't have this. So in this case, you don't have a social media following, or it could be I don't have this gear, or I don't have this experience, or whatever it might be. But this specific case, it's I don't have enough followers or whatever on social media. So you may look at bigger social media accounts or bigger photographers, maybe even look at mine and you're like, well, it's easy for Nash to get jobs, of course, because he has over 100,000 followers. So I'm sure brands just reach out to him all the time and he has to turn down work. And to be honest, that is true. I do get a lot of inbound leads, but it hasn't always been like that. I started from 0, just like everyone else. I had 0 followers. In fact, when I got my first paid job, I didn't even have an Instagram account in general. This was back in 2016, I think, and I got it based off of other methods. Now that's just a microcosm of myself, but take a look at some of the top Nat Geo photographers, top hotel photographers, and chances are if you look them up, they might not even have an Instagram, number 1, or if they do, they have very little following. So it must not be the followers that are getting them jobs, it must be something different. And just to drive this point home, actually my biggest projects that I have ever had have not come from me DMing brands, have not come from brands messaging me to say that they want to work with me because I have such and such social following. It's actually because I reached out and I was able to solve a specific problem for this brand. So as an example, I won't name the brand, but I made over $50,000 for a single job that took me about 1 week to do. I made that much and they had no idea that I even had 100,000 followers on Instagram. In fact, they didn't even know that until about halfway through the job. So that just goes to show that social media followings, although they can be helpful, are definitely not necessary for you to succeed. So all that to say, social media can definitely be a tool. It can definitely be helpful. You know, in my case, it's definitely helpful for getting inbound leads, but especially in the beginning, it can actually even be more hurtful than helpful if you're spending more time posting, looking at vanity metrics and like all kinds of stuff like that, instead of focusing on getting clients. So now that we know that we can compete and we don't need a huge social media following to do it, we move on to level number 6, which is the belief that you need to start doing free work and only do free work until you quote unquote make it. And then once you make it, you can slowly start raising your rates. This level is fundamentally formed by the fear that you are not good enough to justify charging any sort of money. So a lot of times people get into this sort of thinking when they hit the free collab purgatory, is what I kind of like to call it. Basically what this is when you reach out to brands and they're like, hey, we can't pay you, we can't afford it, but we can send you a free product and like shoot some pictures and we'll see what happens. So the problem is you hear this and you get stuck in the free collab purgatory and you just believe like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough to actually charge money. So maybe I should do more free shoots, get more experience, and eventually maybe I'll make it and maybe I'll be good enough. But when is good enough? Is it after 20? Is it after 50? Is it after 100 shoots? Like, when is your definition of good enough that you can actually start charging? And the answer, to be honest, in my opinion, is about after 3 shoots. But for you, it's once you decide you're good enough. If you think it takes you 50 shoots to be good enough to charge, then guess what? It's going to take you 50 shoots. But if you're like, hey, after 3 shoots, I am definitely good enough to start charging some amount of money, then guess what? That's the truth. So just a quick side note, if you're interested in how to get out of the free collab purgatory, you can check out this video right here where I go super in depth into the structure and the steps that I would take if a brand hit me with the free collab and how to turn that into like a $7,500 to $10,000 shoot. So now you're probably thinking, well, people are always saying like fake it till you make it, or like, hey, you got to start somewhere, start doing free shoots, get your foot in the door. And I'm all for that. So like if you're doing a free shoot for a few different reasons, number 1, making connections, number 2, building a portfolio, all about it. But if you already have a connection, if you already have 2, 3, 4 examples in your portfolio that are super solid, then why are you continuing to do free shoots? You have the examples, you have the proof that you can do this. Now go out and give real value to real clients and they should be able to pay you for it. So to sum it up, if you're doing free shoots, that's not necessarily bad on its own, but if you're staying doing free shoots and not expanding out, that's when you're going to be stuck in that free collab purgatory. So the truth is you actually have a whole lot of value to add to a brand, and by not charging money for it, number 1, you're hurting yourself financially because you're not going to be able to afford to live, or you're going to have to take some other side job in order to support yourself because you can't financially through photography. And number 2, you're hurting yourself mentally because every time you take a free shoot, it reinforces the idea that you are not valuable enough to charge the value that you should be charging for this amount of work. So this is just a mental framework that I like to work through, but it's whenever a brand reaches out to you, just think, if this brand did not think what I had was valuable, they would not have reached out to me. So obviously what I'm doing is giving them some sort of tangible value, so I should be able to charge for that. So now that we know that we don't have to do everything for free, we can actually start charging. The next level is, well, I need a whole lot of experience to start working my way up and actually be able to work with big brands that I actually want to work with. So this level is fundamentally formed by the fear of messing up, or the fear of screwing up in public. In my personal opinion, if you've done between 3 to 5 shoots for free, you definitely have enough experience to start shooting for brands and actually getting paid, no problem. So I will say a little caveat is that there are differing levels of experience. If your only experience is that it's just you shooting and maybe you have a few models or a few talent and the client's not on set or anything like that, it's just kind of go do what you need to do, then that's cool that that's your experience, but it's going to be difficult for you to make the jump to something that's a bigger production. In order to make that jump, you're going to have to work with other creatives, other photographers or whatever that are at that level, that are doing those projects, and gain the experience by working with them. But also in addition to the experience, you'll also gain the confidence to know, okay, this is actually not that difficult. As long as I know what I'm doing, then I can definitely do this myself. So if you don't have any experience with big time shoots, I definitely would not recommend taking a shoot where you have multiple talent, you have hair and makeup, you have grip, you have lights and grip and all kinds of stuff. Like, I wouldn't recommend taking that shoot if you have 0 experience with it. But what I would do is either 1, get experience by working with other creators that are working on a set like that, and maybe you intern, maybe you PA, maybe you just are a camera assistant, doesn't really matter, just get experience on a set so you can get comfortable with that. Or number 2 is, if you do have an opportunity to do one of those shoots yourself, instead of trying to do it all yourself and screwing up in public because you don't have the experience, what you can do is actually hire people that do have experience on a production like that, or a similar level production, and then learn from them and lean on them to be able to carry the project, more so than you micromanaging and trying to force your way when you don't have the experience. So that is the 7 steps, but I want to leave you with one last bonus step, which is the biggest game changer for me. And by the way, you can definitely hit the 100-figure mark just off of those 7 levels and unlocking those 7 levels that I just talked about. But this last one, the 8th level, is going to blow it up to a whole another level. So now that we know that we can get experience on sets, the last level and the most important one, in my opinion, to unlock is the false belief that you have to charge based on your time and your talent level. So this level number 8, is fundamentally formed by the fear of overcharging, which by extension is actually actually the fear of losing a job, because you think if I overcharge, if I charge too much, then they're gonna can it, they're gonna hire somebody else. So this fear stems from the lack of confidence in your pricing and the lack of confidence in the value you're actually offering the client. So to be completely honest, there's actually a ton of different ways that you can charge for your photography, videography services besides just charging a day rate or a per hour rate. You can charge for things like licensing, usage, resell rights for footage, print rights, all kinds of different things, which I actually talk about in this video, which if you want to check it out, would highly recommend it, where I talk about different ways that you can actually make money off of your photography that do not include shooting new content. So it's really cool. But there are a lot of other ways that you can make money off of your content besides just charging a day rate. So the main thing to understand here is that the client is not paying for your talent. They're not paying for your aesthetics or your gear or anything like that. They're paying for the result that you are delivering for them. So if you can deliver that result for them, they're willing to pay whatever it costs to get that result, as long as they're getting a return on their investment. So if you're charging $10,000 for a video, but you know that they're going to make at least $50,000 off of this video at the very minimum, that's a 5x ROI, and that's totally worth it for them. And if you can show that, even better, it's basically a no-brainer for them to invest that into that content, versus spending, say, a fifth of that, like $2,000, but not even being able to get close to that revenue goal that they had previously mentioned they wanted to get to. Busting these 8 myths is definitely not easy, and it's definitely not overnight. It takes a lot of thinking through and a lot of intentionality at busting the lie, but if you do, I can virtually guarantee that you will be successful as a content creator. But apart from that, I'm super interested to hear which one of these myths has been the most daunting for you to overcome. Let me know in the comments below, and maybe I'll make a video specifically about how to overcome that one that's more in depth. But if you want to learn from somebody who's already done this, busted all 8 of these myths, and learned a ton along the way, I would definitely check out the link in the description below. Schedule a call with myself, and we'll see if you're a good fit for our Paid to Create Accelerator, basically a one-on-one mentorship program with myself, where we walk you through how to turn your content creation career from hobby to a 6-figure business over the course of 3 months. So if you're interested, definitely check out that link in the description below. Apart from that, I'm definitely interested to hear which one of these tips was most influential for you. Like this video, subscribe if you like more tips like these, and I will see you in the next one.